The wind howled through the pines, carrying with it the scent of snow and solitude. Reese Calloway had long grown accustomed to both. His cabin, tucked deep in the wilderness, was a sanctuary from the world he had left behind. Out here, the rules were simple: survive, endure, and expect nothing from anyone, not even the land he called home. But that winter, the wilderness had other plans. It started with a sound, faint at first, barely noticeable over the crackling of his fire. A whimper, weak, desperate. Reese hesitated, his hand hovering over his rifle. Curiosity was a dangerous thing in a place like this. But against his better judgment, he pulled on his coat and stepped into the night. The snow was deep, crunching beneath his boots as he followed the sound past the tree line. Then he saw it, a bear cub barely clinging to life, its ribs pressing against thin fur, eyes glassy with hunger. Reese's pulse quickened. There was no sign of the mother. He should walk away. Nature had its course, and he had no place interfering. Yet as he stood there, staring at the trembling creature, something inside him shifted. He exhaled sharply, then bent down and scooped the cub into his arms. Back in the cabin, he stoked the fire higher, wrapping the cub in old blankets. It was a fragile thing, too weak to fight back. Reese melted snow over the stove and coaxed it to drink, watching as its small body shivered against the warmth. As the hours passed, its breathing steadied, its tiny paws twitching in sleep. Days turned into weeks. The cub, whom he had started calling Alder, grew stronger. Reese hunted extra to feed it, learned what it needed, how it moved. It was reckless, curious, and far too trusting. And despite himself, Reese found that he didn't mind. One evening, as the fire cast flickering shadows across the cabin walls, Reese heard something outside, a deep, guttural huff. His body went rigid. He knew that sound. The mother? Slowly, he reached for his rifle, stepping onto the porch. The snow stretched untouched in the moonlight, except for the massive figure standing at the edge of the trees. She was huge, her fur thick with frost, her dark eyes locked onto him. And then she saw Alder. The cub let out a soft noise, a mix between a whine and a growl. The mother didn't move. Neither did Reese. Minutes passed, heavy with unspoken understanding. Then, as if making a decision, she took a single step back into the forest. Another? And then she was gone. Reese let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The bear had come, but she had left without a fight. That night, Alder curled up closer to the fire, and Reese found himself unable to sleep. Was he doing the right thing? Had he interfered too much? Would the cub survive without him? These thoughts gnawed at him as the days stretched on. Then, one morning, it happened. Reese had just split a log when a sound carried through the trees, a deep, familiar huff. His body went still, the axe frozen mid-swing. Slowly, he turned. At the tree line stood the mother bear. But she wasn't alone. Alder stood beside her, no longer weak, no longer frail. The cub had grown, its fur thick, its stance steady. Reese swallowed hard. They were watching him just as they had before, but this time something was different. The mother bear lowered her head in a slow, deliberate motion. Acknowledgement. Recognition. Reese felt something tighten in his chest. He took a step forward, then stopped, watching as the mother bear turned, leading Alder back into the wild where they belonged. This time, the cub didn't look back. And Reese understood. As the weeks passed, winter loosened its grip. The ice on the river cracked, trees stretched toward the sky, and for the first time in years, Reese felt something stir inside him. A quiet, steady warmth. He had spent so long believing the wilderness was meant to keep him apart from the world, but maybe he had been wrong. Maybe, just maybe, it had been waiting to bring him back. One morning, as the first hints of spring touched the earth, Reese stepped onto his porch, scanning the tree line like he had every day since that night. And then he saw them. The mother bear. Alder, stronger now, standing on its own. The cub's fur gleamed golden in the morning light, no longer a creature of weakness, but of resilience. Rhys exhaled slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. For a long moment they simply looked at each other, man and beast, separated by nature, yet connected by something deeper. Then, just as before, the mother bear gave a slow, deliberate nod. Gratitude. And then, as before, they disappeared into the wild. But this time, Rhys didn't feel loss. He felt peace, because in saving Alder, he had saved something in himself, too. The wilderness had always been his refuge, but now it was something more, a lesson, a connection, a second chance.